Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Press Talk Sports Live. I am your host, Jeff Weisinger. And joining me is a very special guest, very excited. The energy, I can tell you right now, the vibes are immaculate. The energy is already high. It's a Friday, which adds to that. Ladies and gentlemen, joining me, a woman who's made history recently. She is faster than a speeding bullet and can leap long distances in a single bound. She is Supergirl, literally in human form. She is the first female Liberty track athlete to qualify and compete in state. She has several records, which is why I say she's pretty much Supergirl in human form. Faster than me for sure. I wouldn't even try racing her. The one and only London Shed. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. First off, congratulations on literally everything.
Thank you.
I don't know if I hope I didn't miss anything. I might have. But this has been a good year for you.
Yes, it has.
First female track athlete to compete in state in Liberty history. You're aware of how far back this school goes, right?
So far.
What was that like?
I think it's like over 100 years old.
Well, what was it like the one being the first of like a school?
Oh, it was so cool because it was just such an honor because especially my coach, he's been wanting all of us to go to state for so long. So I knew it was such a big deal to him and it was such a big deal to me. And I made it a goal of mine to go, not just for me, but for my school too, to represent. Yeah.
What was like competing in state? Because it was, I mean, obviously it's your first time going. It's like,
yeah.
I saw the numbers. I'm not going to go into results. But what was it like when you're competing against the best of the best in the state of California compared to like NCS and such?
Right. It's so different because in NCS, like the top 3 girls like are such different times than all the girls in SoCal. So it was like the top 3 of us like in Northern California, we went. All the rest, like the top 30, like the 25 of them were all from SoCal. So it's just like different even going in because it's like a big difference in number from NorCal to SoCal. But going against them, it was such an honor. They're all so nice, so fast, obviously. But it was just really good competition because even for NCS, it is like kind of not as much competition in Northern California and going to Southern California. Like it definitely brought me out of my comfort zone and was like, okay, these are the best of the best, like, you know. So
would you call like a culture shock in a sense?
Yes,
seeing that?
Yeah, it was definitely a culture shock. It was definitely different, but it was such a good opportunity to go against all those people.
You're pretty fast. I mean, we can talk about the school records. 11.84 in the 100 meter, 24.70 in the 200 meters. I think the 100 meter takes me about 11 minutes. When you kind of coming from the year you kind of had, right, when you're setting 2 school records, 2 different events, 2 big events at that, and then you go to a place where they're kind of faster, which sounds kind of weird, and it's not trying to talk what you did down, but it's like, how shocking was that for you personally? When you're kind of coming off as, you have the confidence going into that.
Yeah, it was definitely humbling walking in and going against them. And I was like, okay, well, you know, I was like the best of the best here, but going over there, I am kind of more of like the underdog in that type of situation. So it did just teach me, like, even if I am fast, there's always going to be someone faster. So it just kind of taught me, like, you always have to work and never be, like, settled and think that you're okay with how fast you are. Like, you still need to always be faster.
If I'm asking, what do you take out of state going to what do you take from the experience going to your last 2 years of high school and kind of like now that you have the experience behind you kind of seen what the best of the best is like and what do you take from that? So
at first when I already walked in, I was so intimidating because there's this big audience, everyone's screaming, everyone's so into it. I need to remember that because I didn't get like nervous. I like to say I don't really get that much nervous, but I did get intimidated by the audience, so I was like, okay. So it kind of got me in my head a little bit. Their blocks are also different, so they use Olympic blocks, and they're like big blocks. Okay. So it was like kind of threw me off because it's like the beginning of the whole point of your like race, like if you already mess up in the beginning, it'll just kind of mess up the rest of your race. So I was not like used to those blocks, so that kind of messed me up from the beginning because I've never used those big blocks before, so I know that now for next year that their blocks, they use Olympic ones. And I would just say that like everyone's kind of in their own thing when you go to state. Like there's so many people there, but they're all warming up or they're laying down, or it's just like you kind of need to stay in your own lane, because if you start to worry about other people, then you forget like, okay, what am I doing? And then you get distracted from yourself. So I'd say those are 3 things I probably.
At least like the Olympic blocks kind of prepare you for the possible future ahead. Just saying,
right?
And the big crowd at that. I remember like years ago, one of my first ever assignments in this industry, I had to go cover. I think it was NCS track championships at Berkeley, and it was I never covered track in my life before that. Right, but it's kind of because I kind of had to find a storyline. But seeing the crowd and seeing everything happening, I didn't realize that there was like also a lot happening at once.
Yeah,
and I think that's the one thing that I would say turns people up, but kind of sidetracks people a lot. Like a lot of people who go like, especially at high school level, it's their kids, friends, family, stuff like that, right? And going there, I was like, okay, well here's all the runs. Oh, and everything in the middle happening, is like the throwing of vans and all, and the long jumps and such. I was like, what is going on? I'm used to like, if I go cover like a football game, baseball game, that's all that's happening.
Right, one thing at a time.
The crowd though, like you mentioned, it's a big crowd. How big are we talking?
Like when you walked in at first, I literally was like, first I thought it was like a college. I guess like that's like a place that all the schools combined in that area used for like big football games or something. It literally looked like you were walking into like an A's game or like a football game. There were so many
you mentioned
people.
big crowd and A's game. Those don't really go together nowadays,
Yeah, I know. You're right. But it was so big. And I was like, wow, there were so many people there. Crazy.
Dealing with crowds, assuming your parents were there, like for them to be kind of part of that, how big was that for you?
My parents being in the crowds.
and just kind of in such a big crowd like that.
Oh,
we able to find them like immediately.
Me and my mom have this handshake where we go like this when I see her in the crowd, so I can find her. I always find my mom so like quick. My dad like just screams. He doesn't.
That's
care.
awesome.
He never gets embarrassed by anything. He's like, one, and I'm like, oh, there's my dad. But my mom will just be like quiet and like discreet and do that little hand.
It's so funny because like a lot of people think it'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
Because a lot of dads be like, okay, great job, and then mom's like, ah. And I see this with a lot of the other sports I cover here. It's usually the loudest parents are usually the moms.
Yeah.
And the dads are like, the dads try coaching from the stands. It's kind of cool that it's the other way around with you guys. On top of all the, no pun intended, on track success, can we talk about everything else you do? Because like, I thought like, someone like me, I thought like, damn, like, I tend to do everything here. I worked hard growing up, all that kind of stuff. And then I see this and I'm like, I did nothing. Honor roll. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You're also on Liberty's dance team. Can we talk about this for a second? Because what? When you think track athlete, I'm very, here we're very fortunate to cover a lot of the athletes here and see y'all grow up and see y'all kind of do great things. This definitely being one of them. This may be one of the coolest ones. This would be one of the coolest ones we do this year. But tossing the dance part.
Yeah.
How do you, if I may ask, like, you're 16, 15, 16. How do you balance everything? I'm kind of curious because.
That's such a good question.
I figured that was going to be the answer, but I'm curious because you see nowadays it's so. When I think about how like I'm gonna sound so old saying this, but how y'all generation kind of went through COVID and it was such like a sudden halt in like just basic childhood, right, growing up and such, and now it's like getting back and everything's back to normal now, quote unquote, and how we do everything, but like. Being able to balance so many different things. There are a lot of kids. Like when I used to coach at James Logan in Union City, and my kids had struggles balancing anything. Granted, I had football players, not the smartest ones. I can say that.
Right.
How do you manage all this stuff? I mean, especially at the age.
Yeah. So that's always been something that I've like been known for is like, oh, who can do this? Oh, well, London will be able to handle all that. And I honestly think it's just because ever since I was like little.
So you've had
like,
no choice.
Yeah. I've just like have been put in, okay, you're going to do this, do this, do this. Like that's just like what I've expected out of myself. Like my parents have always taught me to like always be busy and like all these things. But like I've also expected that out of myself since I was little. So I grew up with dance. I danced since I was 2. I do dance.
Since when?
Since I was 2.
That's awesome.
I do dance competitively at East County Performing Arts Center. It's right down the street, literally.
You should be like a new documentary because I'm asking your mom for videos like immediately. Since you went and you just see this little 2-year-old Linda just walking through.
Right. So I've been dancing ever since I was little, and that's like so time consuming because practices we do late now. I have dance practice like from 6 to 10 o'clock every day throughout the week. So that is more like at my night. And then I have school in the morning. So I just try and have all my schoolwork done in class because I don't really have any time to do it.
It's the best way to do it. I'm not going to lie to you.
Right. So that's why I feel like I'm not very much of a procrastinator, if I'm being honest, because I'm like, okay, I need to do it right away or else I'm going to have to stay up later or I'm going to have to wake up earlier. So I just say I keep myself very accountable with everything that I have to do. So I feel like that's why I am very on time with things. So I have school and then I have track after school. And it was honestly kind of hard because track started at the same time I had dance team. So I had to do dance team like one day and then go to track the next day. And then it was kind of like I was playing like wishy-washy with both.
Right.
But then dance team stopped like 2 weeks later. So it wasn't that much of like a big deal. And then I usually go school, track, dance, and then do it all over again. Or I go school, dance team, dance, then do it all over again. Yeah.
God bless.
I know. I love being busy, though.
If I had a kid, I'm having you give the motivation speech.
Yes.
When they're like, not at 2. When they're like just born. So here's how you succeed. Okay.
Right. This
is what you gotta do. Was the accountability stuff like since you had at such a young age? Was that something your parents kind of really instilled early on?
My parents really, really instilled. My dad's biggest thing was he always taught us to be independent. So I have a sister, and me and my sister, I would probably say, are probably two of the most like independent people you will ever meet. Like, you could be like, Lennon, go do this, and like someone would be like, oh, I need help with this. Like, I can figure out how to do it on my own. Just because my dad was always like, don't depend on any other people. Like, you can get it done with yourself. And my mom always taught me to like be a hard worker. So I feel like those were like the two main like life lessons I learned ever since I was little was like be a hard worker and always like be independent and be able to do things on your own. So I feel like my parents always expected that out of me, and then I have very high expectations out of myself. So then I started expecting that out of myself. So then I just always like was like, okay, I need to.
You mentioned your sister. Your sister's the older one. Is it?
Yeah.
It's just you two.
It's just me and my sister. She's like 3.5 years older than me. Yeah.
Such a long 3 years, you know.
Yeah.
I have to ask you about your parents because you're in a very unique situation when it comes to your parents, right?
Yeah.
Your mother being a former Raiderette. Your dad was it LA, right? It was, if I'm right, when they were in LA, right?
It was when they were in Oakland.
Oh, they were still in Oakland. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see if I had my years right.
Yeah.
So you're a Niner fan, obviously.
Yeah, I have to be.
Let me ask you just, what's that like? Just having the parents of the statuses that they have, right?
Right.
I mean, not to say like, oh, well, you know, you have a Hall of Fame parent and stuff like that, but the fact that your dad was a Raider, your mother was a Raiderette, which is the most like, it's the most story of all time, in my opinion. But what is that like? And kind of seeing. Because you mentioned how like the way you grew up holding yourself accountable, being independent, working hard, stuff like that. When you have parents who have embodied that, when they've kind of been there,
right?
You know what I mean? What is that like for you?
It is a standard that I have to live up to because my parents were very well-rounded too. They both went to college for different things, like, and they did multiple accomplishments, like not just with like academic but like athletically too. So it's just like my parents both got so much done. Like my mom has like so many different jobs that she's done in her life. I don't even know. My dad too, he'll just wake up and he's like, oh yeah, today I want to go help out with mental health. Oh yeah, today I want to go do this. Like it's just like they're very like very random people with like what they like to do. Like they are never bored. They can never like relax. So I feel like that's definitely like influenced how I've grown up and like how they've taught me. And I just think all the accomplishments that they got done has just been like, okay, well, even if people are like, well, you can't do that, you can't do this, like my parents have always been like, you can, because like he was a Raider player and she was a Raiderette, and they did it at such a young age, and they went to college too. So it's just like, even if I'm thinking like, oh, I can't do that, I feel like because I have that set as an example, I'm like, I can, because they accomplished it too. So I just feel like that's kind of influenced my mindset a lot differently.
In a way, do you feel like with the way you grew up, with the way your parents are post NFL, you're kind of, you know, I'm assuming your sister was the same way.
Yeah.
Do you feel as if you're kind of trying to keep up a little bit?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like kind of like living up to like the expectations of what they did and just trying to like counteract or follow that. Yeah. I'd definitely say I would try to live up to that.
I have to ask, when you officially qualified for state, what were your parents' reaction? Besides the massive celebrations, I'm assuming there were.
Yeah.
But
my mom started crying. My mom was so excited. My dad was just like, he likes to say these things like I crush people's souls. So he was like, soul crusher.
That is awesome.
He was like, soul crusher as soon as I finished. And he was just screaming that. So everyone in the audience was like, whose dad is this? And then he was like, that's my daughter, like, that's my daughter. And then my mom was just, like, crying, like, screaming, like, they're both hysterical. I was like, I can't with you guys.
Is there a time when they were like that, you're just kind of like, man, like, just hand over the
like,
head,
okay,
you're like,
I know. But it's like, everyone knows they're my parents at this point, so, like, you know, I just accept it. I'm like, yeah, that's them. That's just how they act.
What's it like having kind of famous parents? And I ask this because, like, how can I explain this? Like, my dad's a musician in New York, right? Yeah. And won New York City's greatest guitarist and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And then you look at me, it's like, what do you do? A writer. Mm-hmm. You know? And it's very interesting. And obviously, me being ancient, him being historic. It's very, you know, it sounds like whatever at this point, but I'm kind of curious, like, when I'm with, you know, I go around with him, especially when he plays, like, everyone's coming up to me, oh, your dad's this, yes. Mm-hmm. Do you ever deal with that with your parents, like, whether they used to go to people used to go to radio games, they would see your mom on cheering on sidelines, or see your dad played, and they kind of, oh, when I was young, I used to watch your dad do this, do you ever experience
there
that?
Actually was a time, I feel like now people, like, don't really, like, look too much into, like, the old, like, players, but definitely when I was, like, little, like, tiny, in, like, first grade, there was this kid in my class who was, like, a big Raider fan, and a big Raider fan of my dad, and his parents who were, like, very into the Raiders, and he, like, came up to me in one class, I just remember this, I was literally, like, 7, but he came up to me, and he was like, oh my gosh, I know your dad, like, I have your dad's card, he's, like, hung up on, like, our family room, and I was like, wow, and then my dad, like, I told my dad about it, and then he came in and, like, gave him a signature, like, gave him a hug, I was like, wow, so, like, that was, like, when I was tiny. Now people, like, don't really look too much into, like, older things, but they'll be like, oh, like, look at my dad, or, like, hear that my dad is, like, famous, and they'll be like, wow, I didn't know that was London's dad, or, like, look at my mom, and be like, wow, I didn't know London's mom was a Raiderette, so then I feel like they kind of look at our family differently, or like, wow, like the Shed family, because then people start to like say things like that once they find out about.
Just tell people you like listen to starter shows right here.
Like, okay. Come on, let's
like, listen, I can outrun both of them.
Right, it's me.
I can outdance her.
Exactly, I can.
You know, just be like, listen, me and Dad in a 40-yard dash.
I got that. Like,
no, but I asked that because, like, you know, it's not often. Like I said, the cool part about this job is like dealing with a lot of athletes and all y'all stories and everything. I think yours is most unique because of, not just because of what you've done, which is amazing in itself. Yeah. Because of like your background and everything
where
you came
I come from and how I made. Yeah.
Brentwood born and raised.
Yes, and I was born in Antioch, but
we don't claim that.
But we don't. And basically was born here.
I'm clipping. I'll get heat for that one. But let me ask you something, because one thing your mom mentioned was that when you were at state, not only were you representing Liberty, but also the entire city of Brentwood. Mm-hmm. What was, to kind of track back to the state tournament, what was that like, just kind of not only having a school on your back in that sense, but also like really like the city itself?
Yeah, it was a lot of pressure added on to me, because I was like, I do really want to come and represent and do my absolute best. So I do think walking into there, and there was a lot of supporters there too, like people from like Heritage or other schools and even parents from my school came all the way to Fresno to come watch. I was like, wow, this is so nice. But
you should have told them, like, y'all know gas is still like $5 a gallon, right?
I know. I was like,
there's not many charge stations in between.
Right. But even just like walking into there, I was like, okay, well, I not only need to prove this just for myself or for my school, but also for my entire city, because this is like the first this has ever happened. So just like when I was kind of warming up or just like getting nervous to think about my race, I was not trying to like be too selfish and be like, okay, this is only for myself. Or I was just like already saying like, I'm kind of doing this for everyone too, to represent everyone and not just for me.
The one thing about this city that I've kind of learned, Heritage with Eden Noru, who's like one of the greatest track athletes ever. What's it like in ways competing against her, watching her at the same time? Like in ways, you're kind of probably next one up. And that, you know, and especially when you think about a time when female sports in general is kind of really on the rise, there's a big spotlight on it. You know, track especially, right? I mean, what's it kind of like? Do you feel as if you've seen what Eden's done and how successful she was at her. I mean, she really, to me, probably the greatest track athlete. First off, who's faster?
I would say I am. I have B and Eden.
Clip it, guys. But in all honesty, like following that, having someone kind of in a way pave that path, so to say, what's that like? Kind of now being able to follow that and maybe not just only follow her path, but also pave for those after you.
Behind me, yeah. For sure. Eden is not only an amazing athlete, she's such a great girl. She's so sweet. And I just think seeing someone act like that, because I love friendly competition. Like, we need people to push each other, especially in this area. And me and Eden have always been, like, friends. Like, we'll see each other and be like, oh, hi, Eden, I love you, like, whatever. And then we'll get on to the track, and it's a whole different ballgame, because it's, like, everyone kind of, like, gets in the zone, obviously, when you're on the track. Right. So then when we're versing each other, I remember this is actually a funny story. The first time me and Eden went against each other, I was a freshman and she was a junior. I didn't know. Like, back then, I would say my freshman year, I was not very in the right mindset as I am now.
I mean, no one is freshman year, trust me.
I was very, like, I was getting first. I did not take track seriously. So I was just like, yeah, like, whatever, I'm running, whatever. So then I was doing the 200 and I was going against Eden. And then all of a sudden, Eden was, like, in front of me. And I was like, wow, this is new. This has not happened for me. And so then I was like, what the heck? So then I was, like, sprinting, and then we were, like, neck and neck. Literally, I jumped over the finish line because I was like, I'm not getting beat right now. Jumped over the finish line. I got first, but I still have a mark on my leg because I slid all across the finish line. Still have a mark on my leg, and I will never forget that because Eden was the one that pushed me and was like, okay, you need to, like, humble down a little bit. Like, she literally humbled me down a little bit from then and there. And so I respect Eden so much. I think she's a great competitor for me to go against, and she's accomplished so many things. And just getting to watch her over the past year, because I've only been running against her for the past 2 years, but just seeing, like, her improvement, like, she's such a good 400 runner. She's so good at running the 400. And I just respect people who run the 400 because that's such a hard race. Like, the 400 and the 800 is literally just a mental game. Because the 400, you need to just be sprinting dang near the entire time. And that's crazy. A whole minute of sprinting, like, that's insane. So I just throw down my hands to her because the 400, that's such an insane race to run, and she runs it so well.
You're just like, you just see her running extra, like, how you get a 200, like, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm
good.
Like, yeah.
It's funny hearing the thoughts in the middle of a race from someone who's been, like, who started as strong as you did, and then to see, oh, she went ahead of me, huh?
Yeah.
Halfway down the lane. Wait, what?
I know. I was like, what?
That might have been the best. To me, that's like one of the best parts of the stories. But you mentioned how she was telling you that humble down moment, right? What do you say from racing against her and kind of like racing alongside racing against her? What do you say you take from her? As I know she graduated this year, so what do you say you take from her and that whole experience now kind of going to the second half of your high school career?
Right. I would say I would definitely take, like, away from her grit, because I feel like she's so, like, well, like, with hard working and just, like, kind of making progress. Because I remember going against her the first year, and I was like, okay, well, like, as a freshman, I was like, okay, if I can, like, kind of, like, work my way or, like, go against her as a freshman, like, yeah, I can do this, whatever. And then she came back this year, and I feel like she really, really, like, worked hard over the track season and preseason and over summer even, and was just, like, doing a lot of, like, hard work, because you could see in her times went down. Like, she did so good at, like, NCS or even the finals. So I would just say I would love to take away her, like, work ethic or her grit, because I can tell even if, like, she maybe didn't do well in a race or, like, didn't do her best, like, in her junior season, like, she came back her senior season and she was like, this is gonna be my time.
When you see the especially the new bike competition, and you see their times and everything, do you kind of feel like if you see someone kind of getting close to yours, do you kind of feel that fire a little bit?
Yeah.
And I ask you because I never ran track or anything like that, so I'm kind of curious about the mindset of what it is, because when I play, not that I was any good. When I played and I saw people like catching up, I was like, oh, I need to start pushing harder and stuff like that, right? I'm curious, like, when you see in your business, when you see, like, when it's more about times. It's a time-based industry, so to say, right?
Yeah, right.
When you see people catching up, for example, like you're 11.84, you're in 100. When you see someone, oh, this person got to like 12 something, 12 oh, like 11-9, like, oh hell no. Is there kind of that?
Yeah, it's kind of like, like I said earlier, you just never need to stop working. Like, you can never get to a point where you feel comfortable, because then that's when you start decreasing, and that's when your mindset starts to get worse. Because I fully believe track is like 80% mental, 20% like running.
I feel like as like everyone says about their sport, oh, it's like 80-90% mental and like 10% physical, 80-20, whatever.
Yeah.
And I hear this and I'm like, yes, but it's still freaking tiring.
Yeah, it is still freaking tiring. But I just can tell it's so mental, because just I always think about like how I acted freshman year and how differently I ran freshman year, and how I acted this year, and how differently I trained, and how differently everything worked out this year. And I just totally think that like when I see someone coming up, or like even see someone that's ahead of me in my times, I know if someone's ahead of me, I'm like, okay, I need to get there. I want to work there. So I know someone that's like, okay, London's at 11.84, I'm at 11.90, I need to get to London. So I know someone is always, I'm always going to be on someone's back, and someone's always going to be on my back. Just track is kind of like always like a reaching game. You're always trying to reach. So I just feel like I can never like stop. Because if I stop, then they'll get me, and then I'll keep going down. So you just need to keep always going. So if I see someone's time that's ahead of mine, I'm going to keep working. So I know it's the same for other people.
Do you feel with what you've accomplished this year that target, so to say, is a lot bigger now compared to maybe even, I mean, and I'll ask you about freshman year in a second, but do you feel that target's a lot bigger now?
I do think it's a lot bigger. Just because I feel like people now have known, and even when I came to state, I feel like I introduced myself to a lot more people, and people were like, wow, I did not know about this London girl. So I feel like now I like have kind of made myself known that I am a force to be reckoned with. And I feel like last year people were like, okay, well, London is fast, but I don't think she's there yet. So I just think now people have kind of realized like, oh, London's like pretty locked in. Like, so now I just feel like I am more of a bigger target, and people kind of see me more as,
I guess you could say you're fast, but also soulcrusher fast. Your dad will like that one.
My dad would definitely laugh at that joke.
You mentioned your freshman and sophomore year and how different the two were. If I may ask, like, what clicked? Was it, you mentioned the race against Eden and kind of like the forever mark you have in your leg, but what clicked for you in between the two, or at least maybe it was going later on this year, whatever?
I will totally say it was at NCS finals right before I could get to state. Like, it was the last year, the freshman year. It's like the last time before you can get to state. You had to get top 3. And I had the fastest time for the 100. I had a 12 flat last year. I was seated the fastest like position in the 100. And we had the trials the first day. I got first, came back, and we had finals. I just had to get top 3. So my coach was like, not stressing. No one was like, oh yeah, Lennon, like, you need to like really push. So I was like thinking to myself, like, I got comfortable. And this is why I will always say with track, like, you can't get comfortable. Because I just remember myself, I was like, even the day before, I did not take it seriously. I was not like taking ice baths and soaking in Epsom salt, or like going to sleep early, eating all the right things, like getting mentally prepared and physically prepared.
Oh, you were just chilling.
I was just like, yeah, it's fine. I'm first. Like, everything's going to be okay. So then I went to finals, and I got 5th, and you had to get top 3 to go to state.
Right.
And I think that was probably the most, not even just like with track, but that was probably one of the most humbling moments in my life, because I just got out after, and I was so confused, and I was like, why did this happen? And then I was just like thinking to myself, and in the car ride home, I was like trying to deflect and be like, oh, it's because of this or that. And then when I got home, I had to talk with my dad, and my dad, honestly, my dad is very blunt. He's very honest. And he was just like, you did not act like you wanted to get there.
Right.
And then I have always like thought about it, and I don't think it clicked for me until this preseason, when my coaches told me like, okay, you need to be working, you need to getting all this stuff in. And then once I started working and seeing more progress, and then like doing all the right things, taking Epsom salt baths, like icing, like all this stuff, eating all the right things, then I started thinking, and I was like, wow, I'm actually already seeing progress way more than I saw last year. And I was like, in this moment, I was like, wow, it just took me back to like when I was sitting there, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? And it was like, you aren't acting like you want it. Like, I wasn't acting or doing all the right things to show that I did want this. So I think I just got so comfortable freshman year. I just was not taking it seriously, didn't do all the right things. So then that hit me, I would say, at NCS at finals last year.
How much would you say that shift in mentality and what happened kind of helped you evolve, not just as an athlete, but also as a person?
It helped me evolve so much. And as a person and everything. And I just feel like because I learned from that, if you want something, like, you really have to work for it. And not just, like, because some people will be like, oh, yeah, I want to be able to do this. And it's like, okay, well, what are you going to do that? And so I feel like now, like, once I see a new, or someone's like, oh, yeah, I have to do this, or throws a new obstacle at me, now I approach it differently. Back then, I would just be like, okay, yeah, I'll do that. Or, like, just be like, yeah, I'll get it done. But now I'm just like, how am I going to get it done? And why am I going to get it done? Like, just, like, I feel like now I think more about, like, the background of things and how I'm going to solve it, and I do that quickly. And back then, I feel like I thought about that last. Like, I just feel like I always was just like, yeah, I'm just going to go straight for the prize, and I'm just going to get it, and it'll work out. And now I feel like I think of a plan of how to work things out and how I can get there.
Everything's a lot more strategic,
yeah,
so to say.
Yeah, definitely this year.
So, take me through the journey through this and how we kind of got here, right? Like, you mentioned when you started dancing when you were 2, which makes me want to dance anytime less now, because I'm just like, I have white guy moves, and I'm like, listen. Nah. I used to work in nightlife too, and that's the funniest part. And I was like, oh, how about dance floor? I'm like, no.
You're like,
so why did photography then? I was like, listen, I'm getting paid to be here, but also, nah. I'm gonna save myself that. And before like things went viral. Thank God. It's one of those things I'm just like, the one time I was in the right moment.
Oh my gosh.
But let me ask you, like, you started dancing when you were 2. I'm assuming dance was like your first love, so to say.
100%.
How did this kind of evolve to track? Did you kind of start around the same time age, maybe a couple years later? Or?
Okay, so track has always been in my family. My cousins, my dad's side of the family lives in Iowa, and my cousins live in that type of area too. And my cousin just won, like, fastest for her state, so she's so fast too. My family's so fast. But my grandfather, he ran track, and so did my dad. And so my whole dad's side of the family has always ran track. So it's always been a thing. I feel like, okay, we're going to run track.
Yeah.
And I started doing track in middle school in 7th grade. And middle school track is so different.
So you started, like, not too long ago, so to say.
Yeah,
okay.
Not that long ago. And I also followed in my sister's footsteps. My sister did track too, starting in middle school and in high school too. And so then I did that. Middle school was just like kind of for fun. No one takes middle school seriously. And then, so I started track in 7th grade. Yeah.
I've never felt so slow in my life now. But you guys starting, I'm kind of curious because a lot of athletes we talk to, they kind of started the sports more towards elementary school, and I'm kind of curious why wait? Why was there such a long wait? Was it just because of the availability? I'm just kind of curious, like.
I just think ever since I was little, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a movie star and a dancer and a model, and I never was like, yeah, and I'm gonna do track. I just feel like I was so, like, when I was little too, I was very eat, sleep, dance. Like, I did not do anything else. I just danced. Like, I would wake up dancing in my room. I had so many stretching things. I would travel all over the place dancing. And I still do that, but, like, now I figured out a time to do both. But I just think it was always, like, told to me that, like, I was going to be a dancer and not really, like, oh, yeah, you're going to be a dancer and you can do other things. So I don't think I really, like, learned how to, like, step out and, like, kind of explore other options until I went to middle school. Because I also tried basketball, and that's not my thing. But
I know the feeling, trust me.
But I just, like, was like, you know what, I'm going to try a couple things and see how it goes. So I did basketball, and then I did track, and I was like, wait, track, I actually like track, and I'm actually good at it. So then that's how it kind of started. I just, like, kind of did it for fun.
When you started hooping, what was your dad's reaction?
My dad, I actually started hooping because I had a dream. I literally had a dream that I was, like, playing basketball, and it was, like, in the WNBA championship, and I was like, okay, well, and then we had a basketball tryouts the next day, so I was like, you know, I'm gonna do it. Made it. But I was very, like, I get very aggressive when I'm playing, and when you play with girls, they are so, like, in your face, so rude. So, like, I'm gonna act that same way, and I would always foul every single game, like, because I was, like, the main defense, and I would just kind of get in everyone's face, and I would, like, foul out even if I didn't touch them, because they're like, like, da-da-da, so then I would foul every game, and it was just, like, I was good at defense, but I had no offense. The
handles were not there.
The handles were definitely not there. So
that's fun. The aggressive part is very funny. Like, it's funny. You mentioned the girls' aggressive part. Like, we cover we spent a lot of time covering a lot of girl sports here, mainly because it wasn't done before like that.
Yeah.
And the one thing I've noticed is that sense of aggression. Like covering the boys, obviously I hear a lot of things, and I'm like, great guys,
right? You're
makes y'all look really good,
right?
But covering the girls, I'm like, well, like the amount, especially with like we do a lot with the softball teams here, and so the clapbacks we have left and right, I'm like, yo, like there are times I'm just shooting, I'll hear it, I'm like, what?
You're like, what?
I'm like, okay, this is great. Like I remember we were at Heritage Dublin. I went to Heritage Dublin early in the season, and they came with some new cheers, and I'm looking at the head coach. I'm like, so the energy was kind of high. Like,
yeah,
cheers to Connie. He goes, man. But it's kind of cool seeing that. Like, I think a lot of people they look at girls' sports, women's sports, and it's kind of like, oh, like it's almost like it's just there. But the way y'all have made whatever sport you have, right, whether it's flag football, softball, track. The way y'all basketball, the way how y'all have made it your own, I think is really kind of cool.
I agree,
because with the men's side, like there's so much history to stuff, right? I mean, and granted, like it's been around longer,
right?
So the history, everything's a lot more rooted. But the way y'all have taken sports and made it your own, I think it's actually been super kind of dope seeing it because it's like okay, we get to see more characters come out, we get to see personality, we get to see this and the other, and y'all just have a blast doing it. And I'm like, dang, I wish we could have fun.
I know.
Like I played football for years, and I'm like, this is just a business. Like,
yeah, you're like, where's the fun?
And I'm like, it was cool. Don't get me wrong. Like,
You're like, okay.
Your last 2 years, you got 2 years left here. It goes fast, just in case no one's told you that.
A lot, actually.
It goes fast. It may go faster than you. What are you looking forward to these last 2 years, especially now with the experience you've had this season?
I'm super looking forward to kind of even being looked up to as a role model because I feel like being the underdog, or not the underdog,
that's such
but
a PR
being like
answer.
being like a freshman and a sophomore, I was just like looking up to a lot of people, and not even just like as captains, but as people that like have great work ethics and are really a part of the team and just like are very hard workers. And I'm just excited to be looked up to as kind of a person like that because I feel like for dance, I've always been looked up to like as a role model. So it's like you kind of have always been at the people are always watching me. And I feel like at track, like I have been a role model, but I've also been a lot younger. So I feel like now that I'm a junior and like have more of a potential to like inspire other people and inspire other people to work hard, just because I feel like that's something I wish I learned sooner. And I would just like to lead on and give advice to other people and just be taken more as a role model for this year and just have a lot more goals that I feel like I can totally accomplish now that I have my mindset straight for the last 2 years.
You mentioned dance, but I know it's been a big part of life. I meant to ask this earlier, but did you ever watch like footage of your mom when she danced and when she danced with the Raiders? And like, what was it like watching her?
My mom actually was like, have you seen like the Dallas Cowboy Cheerleaders, like the TV show on Netflix?
I've passed by it because and people who agree with me on this, F the Cowboys, but I say this as a Giants fan. But I know the doc.
Yeah, so they kind of had something like that where my mom was on the team for the Raiderettes. So there was actually an episode that me and my mom watched together, and she has a bunch of videos of her dancing. And she did competitive dance when she was my age, too. And then she did the Raiderettes. So there's a lot of, like, videos of her dancing. So there's definitely a lot of footage for me to be able to watch my mom dance.
What's tougher, competitive dance or track?
That's a tough question. I would say competitive dance.
Okay.
Just because you have to have a lot of background. It's like some people think you can just jump into dance and be like, oh, yeah, I can do this and I can do this. But it's like dance is so, like, technical. Like, you have to think of all the things that you're doing. Like, if you want to do a simple, like, turn, you have to think about straightening your leg, pointing your foot, turning out your leg. And it's like, for track, that's kind of the same thing. They both are very similar. People think they're very different, but I think they're very similar because for running, people just think you can run, but you have to think about your arms, your start, how your head is coming up, your drive phase. The same thing with dance. If you want to do a turn, you have to think about all these things. So I feel like I also kind of have an advantage when I'm running track or when I'm doing dance because it's like also for dance, if we're doing like a quick like cardio exercise, like I got that. And some people be like dying and I'm like, okay, well I got this. Or like it's like at track if we're stretching and people are doing kicks like and their kicks are down there, I'm like, oh yeah, I got this. So I feel like sometimes people are like, oh, they're so different. And I'm like, no, they're so similar. in just like so many different ways.
Right.
You know?
I just feel like you going by, just especially doing your high kicks, and just like, it's like, oh, I can't do it. And you just walking by, can't relate.
I know.
Just the whole time.
Can't.
Must be a you thing. I don't know what to say. When you say competitive dance, I'm kind of curious. Take me into that world a little bit, because I know that's something we've never done here.
Yeah.
I will say the only experience, not even experience I have, but my grandmother was a competitive ballroom dancer back in the day. So I'm kind of curious, like, what's that world like? And, like, how do you take anything from that world to kind of help you with track?
Competitive dance world is so brutal because it's not like sports where it's like, oh yeah, that's a 3-pointer, or like, oh yeah, like that's a touchdown. Dance is like all based off of the opinions of judges. So it's like you can go on stage and do the best routine in the world, and those 3 judges, they don't like it, and then you won't do good. So I feel like also dance has really taught me to like learn how to control my emotions, how to be a good sports, like have to have good sportsmanship, how to be a good teammate. It also is a team sport, but it also is a solo sport at the same time. And so I feel like ever since a young age, like I learned like how to be okay with not winning, or how to be okay with like accepting other people's opinions, and kind of like how to be okay with like working with my team, but also being okay with by myself. Because like I do solos, but I also do team. And it's like for dance, you're always trying to go to perfection. So it's also just kind of like teaching you to always strive for perfection. But at the same time, you have to learn with being okay. It's not always going to be okay. It's not always going to have to be perfect for it to be good. But just for dance, it is kind of hard because you're always trying to get to that perfect state. So I would say that's very hard for a dancer to understand because you're in there for hours, like always striving to get better and to work towards that goal. But you also have to remember, like, you're only human and you can't get to that state, obviously.
Do you ever see the videos of all these dance crews? I'm kind of curious.
Of the
just dance crews in general, like whether it's the hip hop dance crews, stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts, coming from a competitive standpoint, like what are your thoughts on crews like that? Because I know like, music to me is very universal, right? And everyone's going to have different, whatever it is. But I feel like dance is like in the same line as that. Whereas like, you know, you have competitive dancers. Like I said, my grandmother was a competitive ballroom dancer. And she was good at it. I didn't get those moves, but, you know, but like, and then you have all these like I remember like this is I know people can hear this and be like, what is he asking? But you know you have crews like those like shows like America's Best Dance Crew. You see stuff on like, you know, AGT, right? Yeah. And you see, you know, or even on YouTube, right? I'm kind of curious from someone who comes from a competitive standpoint, what is like seeing that, because these aren't really competitive dancers, but like.
But it's still involved in
the
dance.
moves are kind of fire. Maybe. Yeah. Like, what are your thoughts?
I love watching those videos. There's so many hip-hop groups, or, like, I'll see, like, background dancing, like, routines, and I'm like, wow, that's so sick. I've always wanted to be a backup dancer. So that's just something that I see as inspiration, because there's a lot of people at my studio, like, everyone has different paths that they go down. Not everyone's going to be like, yeah, I want to do that, I want to do that. But, like, I've always wanted to go kind of the more professional route. So I always use those videos as inspiration. And actually, one of my friends, her name's Breeze Lily, she went on America's Got Talent. And I think she got pretty far, but I've danced with her before. So it's like she's a competitive dancer and she did that. So it's just like seeing those videos, I'm like, they're so good. And some of them even come from competitive dancing. So it's just kind of like, okay, that can be the next step for some people if you want to go down that path. So I just, like, when I see those videos, I see them as inspiration, and I love watching dance videos like that. They're so entertaining.
I always see it, I'm just like, next life.
I know.
In my next life.
The next time.
You mentioned how you want to go down the professional route of all this kind of stuff, right? You have 2 parents that have kind of done the professional route. If you ever asked them for advice or like just tips here and there of like stuff, I mean, obviously like the hard work and goes into it, but I mean, as far as like the detail stuff of people who literally have been at that top level, so to say.
My parents always had a backup plan, I would say. So I always ask them for like advice, or I just feel like they've taught me to really plan things ahead. So I just feel like I kind of have like always an idea of what I want to do, but I always have a backup plan if it doesn't work. Like my mom went to school to be a doctor. and she ended up being a cheerleader. So it's just like she always like she had that in the back of her mind, but she also had other plans of things that she wanted to do. So, and same thing with my dad. I mean, he didn't go to school to be a doctor or anything, but like he always like had a backup plan. So I feel like when I talk to my parents about it, they always teach me to like have something that you want to do, like have all these goals, but also have multiple goals. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, because if that doesn't work out, like then you have something just as good that's right below it. But if you don't have something just as good that's right below it, then you start to be like, okay, well, what am I going to do? Like, there's nothing else.
So your mom went to medical school and then became a... How did she... If I may ask, do you know the story how they met? I want to assume it's at the Raiders, but because it's just like, oh, one played, one was jailed. But I'm kind of curious, like, if I may ask.
Yeah, no, you're totally fine. They went to a wedding, I'm pretty sure, like from one of their mutual, like, Raider friends. And they went to a wedding and they met there. And my dad told me my mom played very hard to get. So my dad would be like, okay, like da-da-da-da. And my dad also played hard to get. So it's just like they kind of were like clashing a little bit.
So what you're saying is one danced around everything and one just kind of tried to run from it.
Yeah, basically.
The theme of this helps.
The theme of that. And my dad just kept asking for her number, and then they met like that. But they basically met at a wedding of their Raider friends.
Nice.
Yeah.
I got a friend of mine who used to work for the Raiders years ago, and like I can just hear him in the back of my head just like losing his mind right now at all these stories.
I know.
You know. Awesome. So, yes, you're in dance camp right now for Liberty.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Today was our last day.
Oh, only 1 week.
Yeah, we had 1 week because it was it's a company called USA Camp. They're from the big brand of Varsity.
Right.
So they came in, and Monday we just had our normal school practice because we have a big team this year. We have a team of 27 girls, and last year we only had 13 on varsity. Okay. So we had to make a couple big changes, and we have a new coach this year. So she's very likes to have things like prepared. So we already have our first dance ready for back to school dance and for freshman safari ready to go. So we did that on Monday, and then the USA company came Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So we had camp from 9 in the morning to 4, and that was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And then today we just had another regular practice to like make formations and stuff for our freshman safari dance.
So you guys perform at everything at Liberty, or?
Yeah, every like rally, every event, any like parent event, we always perform.
I don't know how you do it. I in the back of my mind, I keep wanting to ask him like, how do you do this? And in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'm never gonna find the answer.
I don't even know the answer.
You guys had all the football games and all the
all football, basketball.
Do you have like one favorite event you love performing at?
I love rallies. I love because it's like everyone's in the same place at one time. I just love like getting everyone pumped and seeing all my friends in the stands. I love rallies. And football games. They're tied.
They're tied?
FNL. I love FNL.
I feel like there's history between the two.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's in your blood.
Right.
Right. London Shed, you survived the hot seat. Thank you so much for coming in. Seriously. Thanks. Congratulations.
Thank you for having me.
Super awesome. Your story is super cool. You find her at rallies and the games and such. But yeah, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
This has been great. Congratulations on all that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Press Talk Sports Live. Each and every week we shed the spotlight on sports here in the East County area. There'll be a day I get this ad read perfectly right and completely smooth. For as low as $20, just a reminder, this is brought to you by the Brentwood Press. For as low as $20 a year, you too can get a subscription to the Brentwood Press. Go to thepress.net and click on subscribe for more information. For Supergirl in living form, London Shed, I am your host, Jeff Weisinger. Thank you so much for joining us. And as always, take care of one another. We'll catch you soon.
Bye, guys.